Who? Lin Chia quickly put away the walkie-talkie and spoke in a low voice. That girl who was with you during the day. Xiaonan. Lin Chia asked in surprise, are you sure it's her? Not someone else in disguise. It's her, I remember her aura. Okay. Si Xiaonan's sudden visit caught Lin Chia by surprise, considering his residence was right next to Seoul's temple, with a significant chance of being discovered. Just as Lin Chia was pondering, a small paper ball suddenly flew in through the window and landed at his feet. She's gone, number 27 said after sensing for a moment. Lin Chia bent down to pick up the note and spread it open in his palm. A line of intermittent dots and lines appeared before his eyes. Morse code. Lin Chia raised an eyebrow. During training camp, they had received instruction in various special skills, with Morse code being an important part of the curriculum. After all, while those outer gods could understand conversations in Chinese, they couldn't comprehend meaningless symbols like dots and lines. Deciphering these codes wasn't difficult for Lin Chia. Soon he translated the contents of the note. Stone monument on the west side of Miracle Square. Si Xiaonan was also aware of the danger here, so she actively asked Lin Chia to leave the vicinity of the temple. It seemed she truly had something important to say. Lin Chia inhaled number 27 into his lungs, quickly opened the door, and walked toward the empty square under the cover of night. The night was almost over, with a thin mist shrouding the deserted streets. Lin Chia's gaze swept across the dim square, finally spotting the stone monument Si Xiaonan mentioned at the westernmost edge. This monument was about 100 meters tall, with ancient Nordic text carved in crimson strokes on its surface. Lin Chia glanced at it briefly. It seemed to be praising some ancient warrior who defeated a dragon. Wielding a mortal sword, he fought the dragon with courage and wisdom, eventually killing it but dying from exhaustion, becoming a hero revered by the most ancient humans. Lin Chia had no interest in cliched hero stories. He walked to one side of the monument, slowly sat down, and felt the cool morning breeze sweep across the empty square as the whole world fell into silence. Xiaonan, he called softly. Yes. Si Xiaonan's voice came from the shadows on the other side of the monument. What happened? I saw the message Cold Xian left. Your brothers have arrived. Lin Chia was stunned, quickly picturing Bailey Pang Pang and the others. Them? How did they find this place? Where are they? I'm not sure exactly how they found their way here, but they're now in the human circle with the Shangxia Society members. Loki has sealed the passage between the human circle and Asgard, so they can't come up. They're with Cold Xian now. Hearing this, Lin Chia actually felt relieved. The situation in Asgard was too dangerous now. If they had come up, they would be in mortal danger, but staying in the human circle with the Shangxia Society members should be much safer. How are things on your end? Have you contacted Great Xiao? Si Xiaonan asked. No, something's not right. Lin Chia's voice was extremely grave. I've been calling Great Xiao all night using the walkie-talkie Jinyan left, but got no response. Something might have happened to them. On the other side of the monument, Si Xiaonan remained silent for a long time before slowly speaking. I just received news that the 12 city-destroying corpses raised by Hela, Queen of the Underworld, which are comparable to major gods, have suddenly disappeared. If I'm not mistaken, they've probably gone to Great Xia. Lin Chia's mind quickly flashed back to the scene in the underworld where those 12 terrifying beasts tore the blind god Hodder to pieces, and his heart trembled. So those 12 city-destroying corpses were Loki's weapon against Great Xia? 12 city-destroying corpses, 12 war fortresses. Damn. He should have realized it earlier. Such massive beasts would be too clumsy for divine warfare, but for attacking cities, they would be absolutely unstoppable. Lin Chia's fists clenched involuntarily. Could it be that Loki had already guessed Great Xia would make a move on the day he challenged for supremacy, so he created 12 city-destroying corpses as a preemptive defense? Lin Chia frowned. No wonder he announced the news so prominently days in advance. Was it all calculated? Although those city-destroying corpses are powerful, it's almost impossible to contain Great Xia with just these. He must have other backup plans, Si Xiaonan said gravely. Lin Chia finally understood why Loki had so publicly announced his intention to challenge for supremacy tomorrow. His goal wasn't to guard against Thor and others. From the beginning he was guarding against Great Xia. If he hadn't announced when he would challenge for supremacy, No one could have predicted when Great Xia would move against Asgard. But by actively releasing the information, he could to some extent anticipate Great Xia's actions. As long as he could delay the Great Xia gods on the day of his challenge, he could safely ascend to supremacy that day. As for whether Great Xia would retaliate afterward, by then he would already be the supreme god, controlling all of Asgard and holding an advantageous position, so he wouldn't fear a surprise attack from the Great Xia celestial court. Facts proved that everything happened exactly as Loki had anticipated. Now that Great Xia was in trouble, they couldn't respond to Lin Chia's calls, and all plans had been disrupted. Without reinforcements from Great Xia, we are now completely isolated, Lin Chia laughed bitterly. How could just the two of us possibly overthrow all of Asgard? The cold wind swept across the empty square. At the distant horizon, a pale light slowly rose, its faint glow reflecting across Asgard's sky, stretching the monument's shadow very long. The faint light of dawn tore through the gloomy sky, and two lonely figures sat on opposite sides of the shadow, silent. Si Xiaonan's hands resting on her knees, slowly clenched into fists. She took a deep breath and stood up from the edge of the monument. She turned to look at the distant dawn, and a determined light appeared in her gray eyes. 7. Don't take action tomorrow, just stand by and watch quietly. Even if we can't overthrow Asgard, as long as we can kill Loki, Great Xia won't lose. You want to kill Loki yourself? Lin Chia quickly shook his head. He's the god of mischief and you've seen his methods. You haven't even ascended to godhood. There's almost no chance of success. There is. What? Si Xiaonan's lips tightened. Though covered in wounds, her eyes were more brilliant than the morning sun. There is. I do have a chance. 7. Dino. I should have died long ago when I betrayed the Night Watchers and left Great Xia. The only reason I've survived until now, staying by Loki's side and serving him for so many years, doing so many dirty deeds for him, making so many preparations in secret, was for this day. No one in this world understands Loki better than I do. If anyone below the Supreme has the best chance to kill Loki, it won't be Thor, it won't be the assassin god inside you, nor will it be any other powerful major god. Can only be me. The only thing that can truly kill trickery is trickery itself. Lin Chia was stunned. He was on the other side of the stone monument, and although he couldn't see Si Xiaonan's expression at this moment, he could hear unprecedented power and conviction in her voice. The Si Xiaonan was different from the one Lin Chia had seen in Songnan, different from the one he saw in the mist, different from any version of Si Xiaonan he had ever seen. The current Si Xiaonan was like a beast about to tear off its disguise, gradually revealing her sharp fangs to the world. As if her entire life had been waiting for this moment. Xiaonan. Lin Chia opened his mouth about to say something more when Si Xiaonan's voice came again. Chia, do you know? At Kunlun Void, when I stood opposite the entire Great Xia, only you still chose to trust me. I was really so happy. The dawn light gradually rose on the horizon. A clear ray of morning sun shone on Si Xiaonan's ordinary face. As if remembering something, a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. I never thought that the time I spent in Songnan as an undercover agent would be the happiest time of my life. Captain, Deputy Captain, Chiamo Hongying, Old Zhao Lingxian, and you. Meeting all of you is the greatest fortune in my life. I probably won't have the chance to return to Songnan, but you, Chia, you must return safely. They're still waiting for you to come home. A crystal tear welled up from her reddened eyes, falling to the ground along her cheek. She wrapped the cloak tightly around herself, her eyes full of determination and resolve as she strode out from the shadow of the stone monument, walking toward the brilliant morning light. She took a deep breath and, mimicking her tone from her time in Songnan, declared loudly, "Watch me, Junior. This time your senior Si Xiaonan won't lose." Lin Chia stood up from the other side of the stone monument and quickly walked to its edge. At the end of the wide road, a brilliant morning sun was slowly rising, stretching the shadow of that small figure very long, like a giant emerging from the shadows, sword in hand, about to step onto the battlefield of destiny. Lin Chia was stunned for a long while before he finally smiled bitterly. "Senior Si Xiaonan? Just because you joined the team a year before me, even though you're actually 2 months younger than me?" He gazed at Si Xiaonan's gradually disappearing figure, let out a long sigh, and after a moment's hesitation softly said, "Number 27. It's time to fulfill your promise. As Lin Chia's words fell, a moment later, a wisp of smoke rolled out from within his body, vaguely outlining the form of a man. What I promised you I will definitely do. I hope you don't forget yours either. Number 27's figure flickered and disappeared at the end of the road. Lin Chia stood alone about to leave, when a faint thunder rumbled from the clouds on the horizon. He frowned and turned to look. It's about to begin. He murmured to himself. Rustle, rustle. Si Xiaonan's feet stepped on countless fallen leaves, making slight sounds. Wrapped in her cloak, she went straight through the deep forest, finally arriving before an ancient temple. This strange temple in gray and white stood in the depths of the sunless forest. Though seemingly ordinary, only a few people knew that beneath this dilapidated temple lay the only passage to Asgard's human circle. Si Xiaonan stood before the temple and bowed respectfully. Lord Loki. In the void before the black statue, space suddenly distorted, and a figure wearing a magnificent ceremonial robe slowly emerged. My dear Xiaonan, I never expected you would still respond to my call. Loki, with a smile at the corner of his mouth, stood on the moss-covered steps and spoke leisurely. I thought you already hated me. Xiaonan wouldn't dare. Lord Loki must have had his reasons for leaving me in Lord Thor's hands. Si Xiaonan's head was bowed so low it almost touched the sandy ground. Loki's narrow eyes slightly narrowed as he gazed at the weak and humble Si Xiaonan before him, a smile still hanging at the corner of his mouth. It seems you've suffered quite a bit during my absence. He slowly walked down the steps, raised his fingertip and gently placed it on Si Xiaonan's neck. Si Xiaonan's body trembled, but she made no additional movement, only closing her eyes tightly with her lips pressed together. Loki's fingertip lightly traced along Si Xiaonan's neck, a faint divine light flowing into her body. Beneath the large cloak, her various bandaged wounds began to heal at an astonishing speed. You've worked hard, Xiaonan. Loki's smile deepened. Si Xiaonan took a deep breath. Thank you, Lord Loki. Loki glanced at her and walked directly toward the forest exit, his magnificent robe swaying gently in the wind, his entire being exuding a subtle dignity. Si Xiaonan quickly followed behind Loki and after hesitating for a moment, couldn't help but speak up. Lord Loki, your attire. Magnificent, isn't it? Loki smiled and waved his sleeve, saying calmly, in nature the more colorful the more dangerous. A leader of a divine realm like the Pope of a faith needs to accentuate himself with the most vibrant and intimidating colors. The more so the easier it is to convince people. The everyday black attire suits Loki the god of mischief. But not Loki the divine king, don't you think? Si Xiaonan's gaze focused and she immediately said, yes. Let's go, my dear Thor is probably getting impatient. Loki chuckled, his snake-like cold eyes narrowing slightly. He led Si Xiaonan away, their figures moving like lightning, quickly disappearing into the horizon. When Lin Chia returned to the front of the temple, he saw several figures walking out with solemn expressions. Thunder god Thor, harvest goddess Sif, war god Tyr, forest god Vela, as well as several members of the Northern European Battle Division in heavy armor following behind them. Thor spotted Lin Chia at once and beckoned to him. Miles, stay by my side. Yes, Lord Thor. Lin Chia quickly walked to Thor's side. At this moment, Thor seemed to remember something and asked, you haven't used your prophecy today, have you? No, what's wrong? Loki has always been full of tricks. This time making such a high-profile public assault on the Supreme must hide some kind of plot. If something unexpected happens we might need your prophetic ability. Thor said seriously. It seemed Thor was also well aware of Loki's character. His brazen public assault on the Supreme must have been thoroughly prepared, and Lin Chia with his power of prophecy was undoubtedly one of his trump cards. I am willing to serve Lord Thor. Lin Chia nodded. Lin Chia followed Sol and the others through the streets of Asgard. Today the streets were unusually quiet. The minor deities who could occasionally be seen on normal days had seemingly vanished without a trace. Even on the rare occasions when they encountered a few handmaidens, upon seeing Sol and his group approaching from a distance, they would immediately change their expressions, lower their heads and hurry along, wishing they could bury themselves in the ground. It seemed that most of the deities in Asgard did not want to get involved in this troubled situation. After all, they could afford to offend neither Thor nor Loki. For them, regardless of which side ultimately emerged victorious, It wouldn't make much difference. Just as the moral heavenly venerable had said when inquiring about the Norse pantheon, the gods of Asgard were nothing but scattered sand. Without a leader they would not pose much of a threat to Great Xia. In comparison, even the Egyptian Sun City, which had been destroyed early on, had more cohesion than they did. As Sol and his group gradually approached the Miracle Square, Lin Chia could vaguely see some figures already surrounding the square. Among them was Hela, the queen of the underworld, who had previously fought fiercely with Sol's group in the underworld, as well as other deities with equally terrifying auras whom Lin Chia did not recognize. Seeing Sol and his group arrive, one of the golden-haired, white-robed deities sneered and said in a sarcastic tone, "What wind has blown the great Lord Thor here?" Thor glanced at him and calmly replied, "I heard Loki was going to attempt to reach the supreme god status here, so I came to see. To see? Or to cause trouble?" That deity sneered. Would the mighty Thor, god of thunder, stoop to taking advantage of someone's vulnerable moment? Drop that disgusting attitude, Thor. If you truly cared about Asgard, you would understand that what Asgard needs now is not a chief god with an empty reputation. What Asgard needs now is a supreme who can lead everyone. You can't break through to supreme yourself, so you come to disturb Loki's attempt? How is your behavior any different from those foolish mortals who only know how to fight for power and position, wasting national strength? Tyr, the god of war standing beside Thor, frowned. "Baldur, shut your foul mouth. If Loki takes control of Asgard, the Norse pantheon will eventually be destroyed in his hands. What do you know? In this era, only a truly ruthless and decisive king can lead Asgard to glory." Enough. As the two argued, Thor roared, rolling thunder mixed in his voice, instantly overpowering both of them. The entire Miracle Square fell silent. Lin Chia stood behind Thor, curiously examining the golden-haired, white-robed deity in the sky. Baldur, god of light? Is he the one who possesses the gray-white arena, the proxy chief god? Thor's eyes, flickering with lightning, swept across the entire square as he slowly spoke. "Where is Loki? Where is he? What's this? My dear Thor? Did you perhaps think I wouldn't dare to come?" A voice drifted over from the other side of the square. Everyone turned to look and saw Loki, dressed in magnificent ceremonial robes, narrowing his eyes and smiling as he slowly approached. Si Xiaonan followed closely behind him with her head lowered. Seeing Loki arrive, Hela, Baldur, and the others surrounding the square immediately made way. Loki passed unhurriedly through the crowd, stopping in the center of Miracle Square, his eyes fixed on Thor, whose expression was solemn. "Loki, what exactly are you trying to do?" Thor asked in a deep voice. "What am I trying to do?" Loki chuckled. "I told you I'm going to attempt to reach Supreme. Since you're here, you and the others can watch from the side. Watch carefully how I ascend to Supreme, and then take my rightful place as God King." Thor's expression grew increasingly grim. "Thor." Tyr beside him placed his hand on his sword hilt and glanced at Thor. It seemed that with just one command from him, everyone would charge forward, break through Loki's followers and capture Loki. Thor shook his head. "Not yet, let's see what he's really up to. I feel this isn't as simple as it seems." As Thor spoke, Lin Chia's gaze passed through the crowd and met Si Xiaonan's eyes behind Loki. Si Xiaonan, with her head half lowered, imperceptibly shook her head at him. Lin Chia frowned, lost in thought. Loki lightly tapped his toe on the ground, and his figure slowly rose from the center of Miracle Square. His magnificent ceremonial robes moved without wind. He spread his arms, eyes slightly closed as if embracing the sky. In the next moment, terrifying waves of divine power surged out from within his body. The moment they sensed this powerful divine power fluctuation, Thor and the others' gazes sharpened. Thor had always believed that Loki's realm was on par with his own, just barely touching the threshold of the supreme realm, but now it seemed this was merely an illusion Loki had presented. Loki hadn't just touched the threshold. He had already stepped one foot inside. When had he become so powerful? "Thor, he really seems to be attempting to break through to the supreme realm," Vidar, the forest god, said with a grave expression. "I know. Let's keep watching." Thor hesitated for a moment but still chose to observe. Loki's figure flew higher and higher in the air, and the divine pressure he released grew stronger and stronger. As black threads extended from his body, the entire sky seemed to be stained with a drop of black ink rapidly spreading. With his eyes closed, he raised his palms and gently clapped them together in front of his chest. Boom! The immensely powerful divine energy suddenly erupted, remotely causing the miracle square below to crack in all directions. The fierce wind blew Lin Chia's golden hair wildly, forcing his eyes to narrow involuntarily. Feeling the majestic divine might descending from the sky, his form was slightly compressed by the pressure. He took a deep breath and forcibly straightened his chest using his physical strength, as spider web-like cracks gradually spread beneath his feet. At the same time, a slight cracking sound came from Loki's body. This is bad. He's really about to break through to Supreme. Tyr's expression changed drastically. He suddenly turned to Thor. Thor. If we don't act now, it will be too late. Dense lightning coiled around Thor's body. He clenched his fists tightly, staring at the figure in ceremonial robes in the sky. After a moment of hesitation, a ruthless glint flashed in his eyes. Attack. As soon as the words fell, Sif, Tyr, Vidar, and the others who had been waiting eagerly had fierce killing intent erupting in their eyes. The Norse war division behind them roared in unison, transforming into countless streams of divine light rushing toward the sky. In an instant, divine light surged magnificently, as if about to tear the firmament apart. At this moment, Loki, with his eyes tightly closed in the sky, suddenly curled his lips into a mischievous smile. At the moment he saw this smile, Sol's heart sank. But at this point he had no other choice. Countless divine lights around him shot up to the sky, and simultaneously, the gods of Loki's faction guarding the miracle square flashed to Loki's side, protecting him in the center. Attacking during chaos. Thor, is this underhanded tactic all you're capable of now? Endless light radiated from Baldur's body as he looked down at Thor's gloomy face and spoke mockingly. Shut your filthy mouth, Baldur. A deafening roar came from the front as the war god Tyr gripped his sword with one hand, tearing through the sea of light beneath Baldur's feet, with the blade pointing directly at his throat. Baldur snorted coldly as 12 light wheels shimmering with divine radiance rose behind him. His form transformed into a stream of light, colliding head-on with the war god Tyr, causing the earth to shake and the heavens to tremble. Such scenes occurred in every corner above the miracle square. Asgard's two most powerful factions finally engaged in a true internal war, with countless divine lights sweeping and colliding, almost tearing the entire sky to pieces. The aftershocks of the divine battle made the miracle square shake precariously. Lin Chia stood alone at the edge, feeling as if countless boulders were pressing on his chest, making it difficult to breathe. Wires. Not far away, number 22 holding the king's scepter, looked equally distressed. He staggered to Lin Chia's side under the terrible pressure from above. They've started fighting. Shouldn't we take this opportunity to escape? Number 22, like Lin Chia, had been brought here by Thor. After all, in such a large-scale divine battle, if that scepter could be used effectively to weaken some of Loki's faction, it would be a trump card that could reverse the situation. But number 22 wasn't stupid. On this chaotic battlefield, just keeping himself safe was already quite an achievement. If he were to use this scepter now to absorb the divine power of Loki's gods, he would definitely become the target of everyone's arrows. Under the siege of Loki's gods, he would have almost no chance of survival. If he absorbed power, he would be killed by Loki's gods. If he didn't, Thor's gods would certainly hold him accountable afterward. Only number 22 himself knew how difficult his situation was. Therefore, he was desperate to seize this opportunity to leave. Lin Chia, who had been fully focused on observing the battlefield, glanced at number 22 beside him. A flash of inspiration suddenly crossed his mind, and his eyes narrowed slightly. Wires. Number 22 anxiously spoke when Lin Chia didn't answer. If we don't run now, they'll finish fighting soon. A divine battle of this scale won't end so quickly. Lin Chia hesitated for a moment before saying seriously, You're right, now that the Norse gods are all caught in the melee, it's the best time for us to escape. Hearing this, number 22's eyes immediately lit up. You have a plan? Yes. Lin Chia calmly replied, I've discovered where Thor hid the Bifrost sword. If we can steal it during the chaos and open the Rainbow Bridge, we can return to the mist. You know where the Bifrost sword is? Number 22's expression brightened. Where is it? Behind the throne in Thor's temple. Good. Let's go get the Bifrost sword and leave this place. Number 22 glanced at the gods battling in the sky, gritted his teeth and immediately turned to leave the miracle square, rushing toward Thor's temple. Number 22's sudden betrayal naturally caught the attention of some gods from Thor's faction, but at a time like this, even if they saw him, they had no time to capture a fleeing proxy. Lin Chia watched number 22's departing figure, his eyes flashing with a calculating light. There was still no news from Great Xia, and in this situation if he could make good use of number 22, letting him open the Rainbow Bridge, he could both complete his mission and give himself room to maneuver if number 22 failed. Simply put, Lin Chia needed someone to go ahead and test the waters, and number 22 was the perfect candidate. Just as Lin Chia was about to follow number 22, a sudden change occurred in the sky. Thor, carrying a terrifying ocean of thunderstorms, forcefully carved a bloody path among the gods. He growled, his eyes encircled with electric light, fixated on Loki suspended in the air. With a flash he rushed forward. Loki! Thor's form instantly crossed the sky, throwing a punch toward Loki's face. My dear Thor, you're still as foolish as before. Loki's narrow eyes looked at the imposing Thor with a smile as he spoke leisurely. Did you really think I would break through to the Supreme Realm in a place like this? Click. Loki raised his hand and snapped his fingers lightly. Countless fine black threads materialized from nothingness, quickly enveloping his form. Similarly wrapped in these black threads was Si Xiaonan, who stood not far away with her head lowered. In that instant the divine power that had been rapidly climbing on Loki's body abruptly stopped, and the threshold of the Supreme Realm that had nearly shattered began to gradually restore itself, as if it had never appeared. Seeing this, Thor's pupils suddenly contracted. Trickery? Was everything just now fake? You weren't actually approaching the supreme threshold? How else could I get a big fish like you to take the bait? Loki said teasingly. Countless black threads swirled around him, and that patch of sky that seemed stained with ink visibly became transparent. In the fierce wind, Loki's elegant ceremonial robe fluttered loudly as he slowly raised both hands. Enjoy this divine battle, Thor. When all the dust settles, I will have become supreme. In the next moment, both Loki and Si Xiaonan, surrounded by trickery, simultaneously disappeared from their spots. Loki's disappearance nearly made Thor's chest explode with anger. Clearly, from the beginning, Loki had never intended to challenge the Supreme Realm here. He had staged that act merely to attract the attention of Thor and other gods, and to use this divine battle to delay them all here. He had already set up his trickery elsewhere, and that place was where he truly intended to break through to the Supreme Realm. No one knew where Loki had chosen. It was too late to search now, especially since several gods were converging here as soon as Loki left, seemingly determined to trap Thor here. Thor roared in anger, lightning flashing in his eyes. He suddenly turned his head toward the miracle square below, his voice booming like thunder. Myers! By whatever means necessary, find Loki's location. With Loki's whereabouts unknown, Thor's only countermeasure was Lin Chia's prophecy. Lin Chia, who was about to leave, heard Thor's voice and paused. As he was debating whether to leave or stay, a ghostly figure appeared behind him. Bang! A pale hand instantly pierced through Lin Chia's heart. Hela, queen of the underworld, had somehow appeared behind Lin Chia, her cold eyes narrowing slightly. Prophecy? We already suffered once in the underworld. Did you think we would be unprepared this time? Human circle. In the barren center of the city, a towering church reflected sacred, dazzling light in the sunshine. The church hall, which once gathered numerous bishops and believers, was empty and deathly quiet today. The yellowish sunlight filtered through the colorful stained glass windows, illuminating the holy hall with a dreamlike, gorgeous and mysterious glow. In the silence, 2 strands of black silk threads condensed from nothingness, and 2 figures were outlined from them. Loki stood in the center of the church, his magnificent robe divided into 2 halves by light and shadow. The lower half reflected the splendid stained glass light, while the upper half was shrouded in shadows. His narrow eyes looked down at Si Xiaonan below, with a faint smile curling at the corner of his mouth. Xiaonan, what do you think of this place? He slowly opened his mouth. Any place Lord Loki chooses must be the best, Si Xiaonan said respectfully. Loki chuckled lightly. walked to the tall divine throne in the center of the church, lifted his robe and slowly sat down. Those fools led by Thor are being held up at the miracle square. That prophet called Myers should have been dealt with by now. They won't be able to find this place anytime soon, and I've already blocked the passage between Asgard and the human circle. Here we have plenty of time without being disturbed. Hearing these words, Xiaonan at the bottom of the church tensed her gaze, her heart trembling. She certainly knew that Myers, whom Loki mentioned, was Lin Chia in disguise. Loki had actually made a move against him. Xiaonan slightly pursed her lips, forcibly suppressing the unease and worry in her heart, stabilizing her emotions. In front of a cunning and keen lion, any flaw could become a fatal weakness. Although I already have one foot in the Supreme Realm, to truly break through that boundary would take at least 10 years. Fortunately, we have the immortality pills that our little Xiaonan brought from Kunlun Void. Loki leaned against the divine throne, his slender fingertips taking out 2 pill bottles from his bosom, gently shaking them in the sunlight. The pills collided with the inner walls of the bottles, making crisp sounds that echoed throughout the spacious hall. Loki casually held these 2 pill bottles, his gaze drifting languidly to see Xiaonan standing at the bottom of the steps, his smile growing deeper. With these 2 divine pills, treasured secrets of Great Xia, I can quickly break through to the Supreme Realm and become the Lord of Asgard. Don't you agree, Xiaonan? Xiaonan's heart instantly tightened. She stared at the steps beneath Loki's feet and slowly spoke. Yes. Lord Loki will certainly reach the Supreme Realm today. Loki sat on the divine throne, his smile gradually fading. Good. With a wave of his hand, the 2 pill bottles were thrown into the air, tracing an arc before crashing to the ground with a bang, rolling to Xiaonan's feet. Xiaonan's pupils contracted slightly. From the divine throne, Loki narrowed his eyes and spoke unhurriedly. Then you eat first. Asgard. Liars. Thor, being delayed in midair by several deities, witnessed Hela piercing through Lin Chia's heart, widened his eyes and roared in fury. Lin Chia was their reliance for finding Loki's whereabouts, and also their only method to prevent Loki from ascending to the Supreme Realm. Now that Hela had killed Lin Chia, it meant all their plans had completely failed. From the beginning, Loki had anticipated all their actions in advance and cut off all possibilities. Lin Chia stood dazed in place, slowly lowering his head to look at the pale hand protruding from his chest, feeling endless deathly energy from the underworld frantically devouring his life force. His face was as white as paper. With a swoosh, Hela, the queen of the underworld, expressionlessly pulled out her hand, blood dripping from her fingertips onto the ground, quickly spreading into a pool of blood. Lin Chia felt all the strength in his body being drained. His legs weakened and he fell to his knees. In his hollow chest, his heart had disappeared. He painfully opened his mouth, seemingly trying to breathe, but his consciousness was receding like the tide. He was dying. Even with his excellent physical condition, under the fatal strike of Hela, the queen of the underworld, there was not the slightest possibility of survival. With a dull thud, Lin Chia's body fell heavily into the pool of blood, no longer breathing. As his life force extinguished and spiritual power dissipated, the magical disguise covering Lin Chia faded away at a visible speed. The appearance of Myers disappeared and he returned to his original form. Seeing this, Hela raised her eyebrows in surprise. She examined Lin Chia carefully for a moment, then sneered. Interesting. The prophet Myers, trusted by Thor, turns out to be someone from Great Xia who snuck in. It seems that Loki's decision to unite with the Olympian gods to launch a night raid on Great Xia and preemptively restrain the heavenly court was indeed the correct choice. In the sky, Thor and the others who were battling the gods saw this scene, their pupils suddenly contracting. He's a spy from Great Xia? Sif covered her mouth in shock, her eyes full of disbelief. How could this be? I knew it. This guy was suspicious. War God Tyr said angrily. Thor. We've all been deceived by him. Thor stared at Lin Chia's corpse, his expression extremely grim. After killing Lin Chia, Hela turned and walked toward the chaotic divine battle, but after walking not far she suddenly frowned and turned her head back. In the pool of blood, Lin Chia's lifeless body was regaining vitality. A golden heart appeared in his chest and began to beat strongly. His blood-stained hand slightly curled, struggling to extend, and in the next moment, A magic array drawn with fresh blood quickly formed. How is this possible? Hela's face showed rare shock. She was absolutely certain that after crushing Lin Chia's heart, his life force had completely extinguished. He was just a human. It should have been impossible for him to escape from her hands. What she didn't notice was that among the black hair at the back of Lin Chia's head, a golden monkey hair dissolved into tiny specks of light and disappeared without a trace. That was the last ability Lin Chia had extracted from Sun Wukong. Life-saving hair. When Hela saw Lin Chia truly resurrect under her nose, she immediately transformed into a black stream of light, rushing toward his body. But at the same time, a brilliant magical light bloomed in the pool of blood beside Lin Chia, and a small mummy wrapped in bandages appeared out of thin air. Lin Chia grabbed Mumu, raised his blood-covered face and shouted with effort. "Mumu, go!" The light of the Holy Grail flashed from Mumu's abdomen, and a spatial transmission force quickly rippled out, enveloping both it and Lin Chia. Space ripples undulated, and in the next moment, Lin Chia and Mumu's forms disappeared in the transmission. Seeing this, Hela's eyes filled with anger. The human insect who should have died at her hands had actually escaped right in front of her, which was an absolute insult to her. She let out a cold snort and rolling death energy from the underworld burst from her body, rising skyward like a giant pillar. Her jet-black hair floated strand by strand in the air as her slender fingertips grasped at nothing in the air, as if catching something and violently pulled outward. Rip. With Hela's forceful pull, space actually tore open at one corner with fine cracks shattering in the void. Dozens of kilometers away, Lin Chia, who was in the middle of teleporting, felt as if his chest had been struck by a hammer. He violently spat out a mouthful of fresh blood forcibly squeezed out of the void. His face was as pale as paper, and his form swayed as if about to collapse to the ground. She can actually interrupt spatial transmission? Lin Chia muttered to himself. Lin Chia held Mumu, gritted his teeth and gathered the somersault cloud beneath his feet, carrying his body speeding away into the distance. Still trying to escape? Hela snorted coldly. The ground beneath her exploded with a rumble, and her form transformed into a black streak of light, flying across several kilometers in an instant, directly pursuing Lin Chia. The speed of the somersault cloud was already considered abnormal, but in front of Hela, the queen of the underworld, it was still somewhat lacking. The distance between the two visibly shortened, with rolling death energy from the underworld surging like waves from behind Lin Chia, making the back of his neck feel ice cold. The severely wounded Lin Chia looked back and frowned tightly. The life-saving hair had no healing function. Although the power contained within it allowed him to escape death, it could only maintain his body functions in a severely injured state. At this moment his mental energy was almost depleted. I wish for mental energy to be replenished. I wish for injuries to be healed. I wish for speed enhancement. Lin Chia, holding Mumu, made 3 wishes in succession. Illusory light flashed from Mumu's abdomen, and 3 flashes of light appeared on Lin Chia's body in succession. Not only did his condition return to its peak, but the speed of the somersault cloud instantly increased significantly. Seeing that the distance between Hela and himself had stabilized, Lin Chia finally breathed a sigh of relief. It must be said that as long as there were enough sacrifices, the Holy Grail was definitely the most handy divine artifact Lin Chia had ever used, practically omnipotent. However, after these few wishes, about only 2/3 of the sacrifices in the cup remained. Lin Chia needed to carefully consider how to use what was left. The king's Holy Grail? Is that agent who possesses the scepter with you? Seeing that she couldn't catch up to Lin Chia, Hela's face turned ugly. The successive flashes of light also allowed her to see clearly what Lin Chia was relying on. The king's Holy Grail, the king's scepter, and the fact that both Lin Chia and number 22 had infiltrated together as agents of the outer gods. Combining these facts, Hela quickly classified number 22 as Lin Chia's accomplice. I want to see how long the sacrifices in the Holy Grail will last you. In the churning death energy, the whites of Hela's eyes gradually receded, and a cold, deathly gray completely occupied her pupils. In the next moment, the sky above Lin Chia's head rapidly darkened. In the hazy black mist, rows of grim and terrifying corpse mountains and winding fetid rivers of fresh blood hung upside down in the sky, slowly pressing down toward Asgard below. The coverage of this black sky was extremely vast, almost shrouding 2/3 of Asgard within it. Lin Chia looked up, his eyes narrowing. In this gradually dissipating black mist, he even saw that familiar corpse temple. This is the underworld. This woman had actually summoned the entire underworld above Asgard. Lin Chia's heart seemed to skip a beat. The inverted underworld gradually pressing down, together with Asgard below, seemed about to crush Lin Chia, who was caught in the middle. Impossible. If she really summoned the entire underworld above Asgard, the gods residing in Asgard couldn't possibly have remained silent until now. Amidst the endless fear, Lin Chia quickly steadied his mind. After pondering for a moment, he held Mumu in his arms and spoke again. I wish for illusions to be dispelled. Bang! The moment the words fell, Lin Chia's surroundings changed. The underworld that was about to press down on his head disappeared, as if it had never appeared. But Hela, who had been dozens of meters away from him, was now at arm's length. Lin Chia could even see the cold smile at the corner of her mouth clearly. She had changed her flight direction in the illusion. The moment this thought appeared in Lin Chia's mind, he had no time to think further and immediately said, I wish. God. Swoosh. Before Lin Chia could finish, Hela's sharp, sword-like nails lightly swept across his body, severing his right arm along with Mumu, whom he was holding. Crimson blood splattered out, and in Lin Chia's horrified gaze, Hela's other hand sliced off his head like lightning. Hela's speed was too fast. Lin Chia only felt darkness before his eyes before losing consciousness. By the time he regained awareness, his head had already rolled onto the street of Asgard. Yes, even with his head cut off, Lin Chia still regained consciousness. As the second life-saving hair at the back of his head dissipated, his body below the neck rapidly regenerated in golden light. In just 2 short minutes he had been killed twice by Hela. How troublesome. Hela stood in the swirling death energy, frowning tightly as she saw this scene. Lin Chia sensed Hela's surging killing intent and turned to look at Mumu nearby. Mumu. Use the Holy Grail to hold her off. Lin Chia's head had been cut off by Hela, and the reconstruction of his body needed time. The only one who could help him buy time was Mumu. Ya. Mumu, who had been severed earlier, rolled twice on the ground and stood up staggering. After witnessing Lin Chia's death and resurrection, it called out anxiously. As if hearing Mumu's plea, a light flashed from its abdomen, and Mumu's form began to rapidly expand, squeezing and flattening the surrounding temples. The bandages wrapped around its body burst one by one, and in the blink of an eye, it transformed into a steel fortress standing among the many temples. A few messy bandages were wrapped around the metallic surface of the fortress. Amid the piercing sound of steel clashing, 2 deep pitch-black launch silos gradually took shape. What is this thing? Hela in the sky frowned as she looked at Mumu, which had transformed into launch silos below. With a deep rumbling sound, the red warning lights around the launch silos lit up one after another. 2 afterimages flew out from the launch silos amid intense flames, shooting toward the death energy-filled sky. No one understood Mumu's ya sound just now, except for Lin Chia, who was reconstructing his body nearby. He stared blankly at the 2 afterimages flying toward the sky, his mouth open in shock. Nuclear bombs? Wishing nuclear missile launch. This was just now Mumu's wish to the Holy Grail. Mumu is a summoned creature from another dimension. He cannot understand Lin Chia and others' concepts of forbidden domains, divine domains and deities. In his cognitive world, the strongest destructive weapon has only one name: nuclear. As 2 shadowy figures soared into the clouds, scorching light balls silently exploded in the sky, instantly engulfing Hela's form and the vast death energy, as if someone had used a torch to burn 2 large holes in the sky. The next moment, an earth-shattering explosion echoed throughout Asgard. In their respective temples, the many lesser gods who had kept themselves safe changed their expressions and unanimously looked toward the 2 scorching fireballs in the sky. That was an explosion they had never seen before. Unlike explosions caused by gods or divine artifacts, they felt no divine power fluctuations from it. That thing did not belong to the world of mythology. As the flames in the sky gradually dissipated, Lin Chia's body finally completed its reconstruction. He called out to Mumu, who immediately transformed back into a bandaged little dwarf and returned to him. Lin Chia, relying on the map in his memory, summoned the somersault cloud and flew directly toward the Rainbow Bridge. Calculating the time, number 22 should have already stolen the Holy Rainbow Sword and would soon open the door to the Rainbow Bridge. Not long after Lin Chia left, from within the rolling thick smoke, a pair of slightly charred hands extended from nothingness, violently tearing open space. Surging netherworld death energy flowed from the spatial crack as Hela slowly walked out. Her black royal robe was already in tatters, but apart from some burn marks she had no other wounds. Her pitch-black pupils looked in the direction Lin Chia had departed, her face so gloomy it could drip water. Seeking death. Hela seemed to sense something and turned to look at the divine miracle square. The countless divine powers tearing through the sky had now mostly disappeared, and the trembling of Asgard beneath her feet gradually subsided. In the distant sky, several figures transformed into streaks of light, rapidly flying toward this direction. Those were the gods from Loki's faction. Let Thor and the others retreat? A bunch of useless trash. Hela snorted coldly, paused for a moment, then looked back toward the Rainbow Bridge, her eyes narrowing slightly. Now, where do you think you can escape to? As Lin Chia rushed forward with all his might, the silhouette of the Rainbow Bridge could already be vaguely seen at the edge of the horizon. Miles? No, Lin Chia. Number 22's voice suddenly came from the side. Lin Chia turned to look and saw number 22 carrying a golden giant sword on his back, looking at him in astonishment. How did you change back to your original appearance? My identity has been exposed. Lin Chia looked back and said seriously, hurry. They're about to catch up. Seeing this, number 22 also increased his speed to the maximum, rapidly approaching the Rainbow Bridge. As the distance between the Rainbow Bridge and the two men grew shorter, just as they were about to step onto the bridge, a black streak of light descended from the sky. Boom. The rolling netherworld death energy nearly flipped the two men over. The queen of the underworld, Hela, stood at the head of the Rainbow Bridge with a gloomy face, her cold killing intent instantly locking onto Lin Chia and his companion. Lin Chia's heart immediately sank. Damn it, how did she get here so fast? Number 22's expression was equally grim. He glanced behind him. Under the dim sky, several figures releasing terrifying divine might were rapidly approaching. This is bad, they're all coming. Number 22 said in panic. Lin Chia's eyes were fixed on Hela before him, his fists tightly clenched. He took a deep breath and once again took out the pixelated walkie-talkie from his pocket, pressing the button on it. His hoarse voice slowly sounded. This is Lin Chia. Calling Dasha Nightwatcher headquarters. Please respond if you receive this. See. On the other end of the walkie-talkie there was still only endless static. Seeing this, Hela couldn't help but mock. You're still hoping those Dasha gods will come save you? How ridiculous. Don't you know? Just last night 12 city-destroying mountain corpses, together with the Olympian gods, launched a full-scale attack on Dasha. Now the Dasha gods are busy defending Dasha's borders. How could they have time to save you? Do you think you're more important than the entire Dasha? Hearing these words, Lin Chia's heart grew even heavier. Indeed, his guess was correct. Dasha was in trouble. Lin Chia tightly gripped the walkie-talkie in his hand, the veins on the back of his hand bulging one by one. He slowly closed his eyes, a sense of despair rising in his heart. With reinforcements nowhere in sight, his identity exposed and angry gods about to surround him, he was truly at the end of his rope with nowhere to go. But soon his heart calmed down. His eyes opened with only acceptance and tranquility remaining in them. So what if he was in despair? He had faced even more desperate situations before. Facing Egyptian gods alone in Kunlun Void, escaping from hell with no way out. Weren't each of those even more perilous and desperate? The Lin Chia now was no longer the rookie who had just joined the Night Watchers. His mental fortitude had been tempered like solid rock through countless life and death trials. Feeling despair is human nature. Conquering despair is what makes a true warrior. Whether they can come or not, I don't know, Lin Chia calmly said. But the mission that belongs to me I must complete. Number 22, give me the sword. Lin Chia's voice sounded in number 22's ears. After hesitating for a moment, he removed the holy rainbow sword from his back and handed it to Lin Chia. Lin Chia was very clear about number 22's strength. Good enough for reconnaissance, but in this situation he couldn't be of much use. He would likely be chopped into pieces before even reaching Hela, and the holy rainbow sword would fall into the enemy's hands. Lin Chia slung the holy rainbow sword on his back, and 2 summoning spells appeared. He held the Kusanagi sword in his left hand and white slash in his right, looking at Hela with eyes as cold and firm as a rock standing unmoved in a storm. Today this gate of Asgard. I will definitely open it. Lin Chia mentally connected with the god's mental hospital, and the next moment, a gray-robed phantom of Gilgamesh was sketched out from nothingness, slowly overlapping with his form. Soul-bearing. After Gilgamesh's soul merged with Lin Chia's body, Lin Chia's spiritual power surged rapidly. Already at the peak of the Klein realm, his aura now erupted again, with 1 foot stepping into the human ceiling realm, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't advance even half a step further. Just like at the National Divine Monument, it was as if an invisible shackle was placed on Lin Chia's shoulders. Even if he bore the soul of a god, he could not easily cross the threshold of the human ceiling. Lin Chia took a deep breath and spoke again. I wish. Realm advancement. Light flowed through Mumu's body, and the crimson blood surging within the Holy Grail was rapidly consumed. At the same time, an extremely profound energy was poured into Lin Chia's body out of thin air, as if giving him a powerful push from behind, forcibly stepping beyond that threshold. The aura of the human ceiling level erupted from Lin Chia's body. I sensed the aura emanating from Lin Chia, and Hela's brows slightly furrowed. Forcibly breaking through your level using the Holy Grail? Do you think this will change anything? Hela sneered. No matter how much you break through, you're still just a human. Do you think you can become a god with the Holy Grail? The human ceiling could indeed contend with gods to some extent, but that was the limit. Without laws, one cannot kill gods, let alone when facing Hela, the queen of the underworld. Even among the many chief gods of Asgard, she possessed absolute peak combat power. A Klein-level Lin Chia was no different from a mouse to Hela. Even if he temporarily reached the human ceiling, he was just a slightly larger mouse. Lin Chia remained silent. He extended his hand and pressed against the void above his head. Magical lines rapidly formed, and within moments, they converged into 2 enormous summoning arrays with a radius of several kilometers. The moment these 2 magic arrays appeared, extreme frost and pitch-black clouds intertwined above Lin Chia. A clear dragon's roar mixed with deep thunder exploded at the edge of Asgard. 2 shadows rapidly descended. One form rode endless ice and snow, wings spread, blocking the sky and sun. The other form was shrouded in lightning, swift as electricity, rolling with divine might. Frost Dragon and Thunder Beast Lifeng. These 2 summons were Lin Chia's strongest summoning lineup currently. Pseudo-divine beasts. Hela gazed at the 2 figures rushing toward her, contempt appearing in her eyes. A dark netherworld spread from beneath her feet, instantly dyeing the entire broken rainbow bridge. Like a pool of deathly stillness, countless pale skeletons emerged from within. With a thought from Hela, these skeletons, as if possessing consciousness, rapidly gathered behind her, gradually piling up to form a skeletal giant half-submerged in the netherworld pool. With the grating sound of countless bones grinding together, it slowly stood up, its head nearly touching the lightning-filled sky floating with ice clouds. The shadow of this skeletal giant covered a quarter of Asgard. Even the enormously large frost dragon now appeared only as big as one of the giant's arms. As the frost dragon exhaled, extreme cold swirled in the blizzard, surging toward the skeletal giant's body, instantly freezing large parts into ice that shattered piece by piece. But the next moment, more skeletons surged from the netherworld pool, endlessly filling the missing parts. As a sky-covering hand grabbed down, countless skeletons engulfed the frost dragon's form, like a prison trapping it within. The ice continuously eroded the surrounding skeletons, but endless more filled in. Even the frost dragon's massive body could now only be trapped inside like a small bird. A lightning flash crossed the sky, blasting a large hole in the skeletal giant's arm. Thunder Beast Lifeng's speed was incredibly fast. Even endless skeletons couldn't keep up with its speed, let alone catch it. Your lightning is far inferior to Thor's. Seeing this, Hela shook her head slightly. The next moment, the netherworld pool beneath Lifeng suddenly erupted, instantly swallowing the lightning around the thunder beast. The netherworld death energy invaded Lifeng's body, coating it with a layer of deathly gray, visibly slowing its speed. The skeletal giant raised its hand and smashed down, trapping Lifeng in an endless cage as well. After easily subduing the two summons, Hela's gaze calmly swept the surroundings. Soon, her eyes slightly contracted at a certain spot of nothingness beside her. Space twisted and Lin Chia, holding Kan by, floated out like a specter. With a flick of his wrist, the sharp blade of the Kusanagi sword lunged directly at Hela's neck. Hela seemed to know the power of the Kusanagi sword and stepped back half a pace. The blade swept past, grazing her nose. The next moment, the netherworld pool beneath her feet came alive, and several black spikes shot out violently. Lin Chia's eyes narrowed as he stomped heavily on the netherworld pool, suddenly opening a domain. Finality King's Law. Lin Chia shouted, and the netherworld energy that was originally piercing toward him simultaneously halted in midair, then bizarrely twisted, actually accompanying Lin Chia's second sword strike toward Hela. The loss of control over her divine domain made Hela's pupils contract sharply. She never imagined that Lin Chia could reverse control her divine domain. With Gilgamesh personally embodying him, plus temporarily breaking through to the human ceiling, Lin Chia's Finality King's Law had been amplified to an extremely terrifying degree. He could even briefly counter a main god-level divine domain like Hela's. This was Lin Chia's trump card, and his only hope for turning the tables against Hela, Queen of the Underworld. The netherworld pool beneath Hela's feet was covered by Finality King's Law, boiling like a cauldron. Countless tentacles extended out, grabbing her body, temporarily restraining her in place. A blade light ignored space, directly slashing across Hela's chest, leaving a shallow wound. Immediately after, Lin Chia, holding the Kusanagi sword, flashed to Hela's front. A brilliant sword light pierced into the wound, instantly penetrating her heart. Blood splattered out. Hela's face paled as her immense divine power violently erupted, instantly breaking free from the netherworld pool. Her form trailed after images as she retreated dozens of meters away. Following the spread of Finality King's Law, the skeletal giant standing behind Hela automatically collapsed. Thunder Beast Lifeng and Frost Dragon simultaneously broke free. A frost breath and a thick lightning bolt intertwined, crashing down on Hela's position. Her form was immediately submerged within. A shadow with a giant sword on its back rapidly flashed past her position, flying toward the rainbow bridge behind. Hela is injured. That guy wants to take the chance to open the rainbow bridge. Attack together. Kill him. Several Loki system gods who had just arrived changed their expressions upon seeing this scene. They attacked simultaneously, with several surges of powerful divine energy rolling toward the speeding Lin Chia. Lin Chia sensed the terrifying waves coming from behind, gritted his teeth and pulled at the void. The countless skeletons scattered from the skeletal giant's body, as if guided by an invisible hand, quickly interwove into a thick, pale, heavy wall blocking behind him. Several divine powers crashed into the skeletal wall, shaking the entire rainbow bridge. Half a second later, the pale wall exploded, and the divine powers surged forth again. Although Lin Chia could use part of Hela's divine domain, compared to the real Hela, his strength was still far inferior. Now facing several gods attacking together, he had no possibility of withstanding it. As the heavy wall shattered, Lin Chia's control over the divine domain was instantly backlashed. His face suddenly paled as he violently coughed up a mouthful of blood, his steps faltering, nearly falling to the ground. Two giant shadows flew past Lin Chia's figure, actively colliding with the divine power filling the sky. The Frost Dragon and the Thunder Beast rifle, carrying frost and lightning, forcefully shattered half of the divine power, but simultaneously, their forms were crushed into magical light, dissipating back to their respective worlds. Damn it! Seeing that even this couldn't neutralize the combined attack of several gods, Lin Chia steeled himself, gritted his teeth and activated Final King's Law again. The pitch-black abyss of the netherworld enveloped Lin Chia's form, and almost simultaneously, several world-destroying divine powers engulfed his figure. An earth-shattering explosion erupted from the end of the Rainbow Bridge. The entire broken bridge trembled slightly, and the howling gale seemed ready to tear everything to pieces. At the same time, a pair of charred hands tore through the thick smoke. Amidst the splashing ice fragments and electric sparks, Hela's figure emerged. In her chest, a damaged heart could be vaguely seen, still beating strongly. Lin Chia's sword strike had indeed wounded Hela. Under the special properties of the Aim no Murakumo sword, this injury couldn't heal. But even so, for a powerful main god like Hela, it wasn't a fatal wound, especially since the attack contained no law energy, making it impossible to kill her. She coldly wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, her eyes fixed on the center of the explosion. As the smoke gradually cleared, a blood-covered figure slowly appeared at the end of the Rainbow Bridge. Lin Chia supported his body with both hands, half kneeling on the ground, coughing violently. His entire body was a bloody mess from the explosion, looking extremely wretched. Relying on Final King's Law and his own robust physique, he had survived the combined attack of several gods, but now his condition was extremely poor. Not only was his physical body at its limit, but after 2 backlashes his head felt like it was about to split open, and he had completely lost control over Hela's divine domain. But even so, his eyes remained incredibly bright. He tremblingly reached out to wipe the blood from his face, his gaze sweeping across Hela in front of him and the many gods hovering in the sky. The corner of his mouth involuntarily curled into a smile. "How about that? I made it through." "So what if you made it through?" Hela said coldly. "Did you really think that stealing the Holy Rainbow Sword would allow you to easily open the Rainbow Bridge?" She snorted coldly and turned to look at a certain place in the distance. "Heimdall, I know you don't want to get involved in the battle for the throne of gods. But now someone wants to use the Holy Rainbow Sword to open the gate, endangering all of Asgard. Can you still sit idly by?" Hearing these words, Lin Chia's gaze focused, and a sense of foreboding rose in his heart. Heimdall was the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge and also a main Norse god who had been turned into a bull by the moral Heavenly Venerable during the last divine trial. A resolute determination flashed through his mind. Without time to think further, he raised the Holy Rainbow Sword in his hand, about to thrust it into the Rainbow Bridge. Just then, brilliant golden light burst forth from within the enormous Holy Rainbow Sword. Lin Chia felt a tremendous force emanating from the sword, the scorching divine power directly burning his palm. This long-dormant sword, as if possessing its own consciousness, suddenly broke free from Lin Chia's grasp and transformed into a golden rainbow flying toward the sky. A figure clad in golden armor with a mountainous, massive form, was already standing in the air. He reached out and caught the Holy Rainbow Sword with a gesture. His indifferent eyes swept over the Rainbow Bridge below as he slowly spoke. "A mere human insect, how dare you presume to wield the sword and open the gate?" Seeing this, Hela and the Loki faction gods in the distance simultaneously smiled. The Holy Rainbow Sword was the key to opening the Rainbow Bridge and one of Asgard's divine artifacts. It wasn't without an owner. Its master was the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge, Heimdall. Previously, Heimdall's pride had been wounded by the moral Heavenly Venerable, so he had been in seclusion, not concerning himself with external affairs. After all, his sole mission was to guard the Rainbow Bridge. But now that the Holy Rainbow Sword had fallen into outsider hands, he could no longer continue to stand by. Having reclaimed the Holy Rainbow Sword, the human could no longer open the Rainbow Bridge. All his efforts would ultimately become a laughingstock. Number 22, hiding behind the gods, turned deathly pale at this sight. The last flicker of hope in his eyes was extinguished. "It's over, it's all over," he muttered. Heimdall, holding the Holy Rainbow Sword, glanced at Hela and the others, then turned to leave. "Your affairs are your own to handle. I will help no one." Seeing this, Hela narrowed her eyes but didn't say anything more. She turned to look at Lin Chia standing at the end of the Rainbow Bridge with empty hands and mockingly said, "I told you you can't open the Rainbow Bridge. Humans should just live quietly in the human circle. Challenging the gods will only lead to death." At the end of the broken Rainbow Bridge, the badly wounded Lin Chia stood alone. Drops of blood fell from his fingertips to the ground, quickly spreading into a pool of blood. His body was at its absolute limit. "She." Dry static came from the walkie-talkie at his waist like a demon's whisper, constantly trying to erode the last hope in his heart. A breeze swept across the end of the rainbow bridge, creating ripples in the pool of blood at his feet. In the reflection of the blood pool, he slowly straightened his chest, and his pale lips gradually curled into a smile. His eyes fixed on Hela on the other side of the bridge and the Norse gods standing majestically in the sky, he calmly said, "So, you gods still know nothing about humans." He flipped his palm and a light blue star coin lay quietly in his hand, emitting a mysterious glow. The king's star coin. Lin Chia's gaze focused as he forcefully flicked the center of the star coin with his thumb. Ding! In the crisp resonating sound, the light blue star coin was tossed high. The smooth coin face flashed through the world, clearly reflecting the Norse gods in the sky, as well as the mockery and disdain at the corner of Lin Chia's mouth. Memories flowed, the past reappeared. The next moment, a familiar golden greatsword appeared in Lin Chia's grasp out of thin air. The gods in the sky and Hela at the end of the rainbow bridge saw this and their pupils suddenly contracted. How is this possible? Heimdall, who had just left, seemed to sense something and abruptly turned his head toward the rainbow bridge, his eyes filled with disbelief. The wild wind howled, thunderclouds roared. At the end of the rainbow bridge, Lin Chia gripped the sword hilt with both hands and, using all his strength, thrust it violently into the ground beneath his feet. A brilliant golden pillar of light shot up from the edge of Asgard.